What's going on, everybody? It's Matt Marchese, also known as Islanders Daily, your daily news for the four-time Stanley Cup champions, New York Islanders. And today we've just kind of got a miscellaneous amount of updates that occurred for the Islanders, as well as, in the NHL as a whole, that could result in possibilities for the Islanders. I don't think it will in the grand scheme of things, but you never know. So it is worth to talk about it. And the first thing is Cal Richie is still up with the big club for training camp and preseason. And at this rate, I feel like Cal Richie needs to make the team, right? He's a young guy for the Islanders. He's looked really well in preseason. And to not have someone like him be starting the year in the NHL, I feel like it's just a missed opportunity. And Cal Richie, to me, is a player who I think is ready. And I think that with time, he will just continue to improve, as we did get him in that Brock Nelson trade last year at the deadline. So Cal Richie is someone who needs to be on the NHL roster, in my wholehearted opinion. And what the update is kind of what I've, been wanting to talk about is we all know Alexander Barkov tore his ACL on the Panthers, and we've heard rumors that, at the deadline, if the Islanders are out of it, you could trade someone like Pajot, someone like Cizikas. With Barkov already tearing that ACL, I have to believe that the Panthers might be making calls to teams hoping to fill that void for the season, as, they do have Stanley Cup aspirations. Someone like Cizikas or Pajot obviously can't replace Barkov, but it definitely makes me wonder if the Panthers would be willing to call the Islanders about, Pajot or Cizikas, and if the Islanders would be willing to move them in order to make space for Cal Richie. And I think that's just going to come down to how it ends up performing at the, end of preseason here. And that's what's going to be happening. So it's on Cal Richie to continue to keep improving, and hopefully he earns his way onto the team. He makes it hard for Darche and Waugh to, send him down to the AHL. I know that's kind of been what the rumor is, having him start down there, but I don't know. I just feel like Cal Richie's a player who already deserves to be in the NHL, and I think it would be more entertaining to have someone like Cal Richie on the NHL roster compared to a Cizikas or a Pajot. And like I said, Cizikas was not looking like the Cizikas of old in the preseason, and Pajot, he was looking all right, but it's time to start thinking about the Islanders' future. With the Lou Lamoriello era and everything, obviously you can't get rid of it right away. That's not possible. But it's definitely time to start thinking about the future and our prospects and our young guys. And I think the only way for them to truly improve is to improve through the NHL. Because obviously the AHL team was horrible. Now they did change everything up about that team, coaches, and all that stuff. So hopefully the AHL team is actually, something I could consider a hockey team this season. But I just would love to see Cal Richie up in the NHL and not be wasting time in Bridgeport when I think he is very clearly ready to play in the NHL. And then Patrick Waugh, we talked about, the new lines that Waugh announced. Well, Waugh has already changed the lines, and the D pairs have stayed the same. We still have Romanov and D'Angelo, Pelech and Pulak, Schaefer and Mayfield, and then George and Boquist as the extra pair. And right now it seems pretty obvious to me that Matthew Schaefer is going to make this team. Obviously, he, did struggle a little in the last preseason game, making those rookie mistakes, but that's okay. And he had a great answer about it and said it was all a learning experience. And in order to improve, he had to make those mistakes, and he's happy it happened in the preseason so he can improve on it before the season actually starts. And he just seems like a confident kid, Matthew Schaefer, and that's what I like. That's what I think we all should like, is his poise, his confidence, and how it doesn't affect him or let him get down. And I think he will be a lock to be on the roster for the whole season. I know we've had people in the comments saying Schaefer has no real opportunity here, but at this point, I think it's a lock. I think he'll pass the 9-game trial period, and he will be a full-time NHLer this season. Unless, something crazy happens, but I just don't see a world in where Schaefer does not make that lineup. And now for our new practice lines, we have Lee, Barzal, and Palmieri, Drouin, Horvat, and Heineman, Holmstrom, Pajot, and Shabanov, Duclair, Cizikas, and Siplikov, and then the extra line is Richie, McLean, and Gatcomb. And yeah, we already see Waugh changing things up. Obviously, he keeps Lee, Barzal, and Palmieri the same. And I think that line, Barzal and Palmieri, did definitely perform really well with each other. I think Lee struggled, but he has been injured, as I've said. And hopefully that is what was kind of causing his play to not be as good in that preseason game. But our first line change is Drouin, Horvat, and Heineman. Heineman already moves all the way up to play with Drouin and Horvat. And that just shows the trust Patrick Waugh has in someone like Emil Heineman. And, you know, that's really pretty impressive by Heineman. And this is what Waugh had to say. He said, I'm very impressed with him since he's been here, quite honestly. He's fast, shoots the puck well, he's reliable defensively. It's fun to have a guy like that. So, Waugh is talking the praise of Heineman, and he's clearly enjoyed what Heineman has done for the Islanders since getting here, and he's given him an opportunity to make a name for himself and play on that second line. So we'll see how Heineman performs with this new practice line and everything. And yeah, I'm excited to see it. And then, of course, our next new line is Holmstrom, Pajot, and Shabanov. And Shabanov obviously moves down. And Waugh also said this was kind of a reason because Shabanov is still new to the North America game. And he said having someone like Pajot next to him is a huge help. And it will help him improve and be a player. And I like Holmstrom and Pajot together. I think they're a solid duo. Adding somebody like Shabanov, I actually think this line could be well. And this kind of has me teetering on as I would like to keep JG Pajot on the team because I think this is a solid line. And like Waugh said, I think Pajot can easily help Shabanov improve his game as well as, just continue to grow as a player because even Shabanov, he asked Patrick Waugh today, about D-zone coverage. And Waugh was like, why do you want to know about D-zone coverage? And Shabanov says, because this is how we win, offensively and defensively. And Shabanov is already admitting that he needs to up his defensive game. And that just shows, great willingness to learn by Shabanov. And I'm excited to see what Shabanov does on this line. I think it is a good line for him. I think Holmstrom is our most underrated player on the Islanders. And Pajot has and always will be a solid player. Obviously, he's not the guy who we acquired at that trade deadline however many years ago during the COVID years. But it's definitely a good thing, a good learning experience for Shabanov, and I'm excited to see it. And then the fourth line here is Duclair, Cizikas, and Siplikov. And we see Duclair and Siplikov get moved down to the fourth line with Cizikas. I just feel like this is kind of, Duclair just has not been performing up to the standards they want. Or it could just be line combinations, obviously. And Siplikov, we haven't seen play in the preseason due to an injury that's been nagging him. I think he is good to go, and he will be playing in the final 2 preseason games, I believe. And then the extra line is Richie, McLean, and Gatcomb. They have Richie playing wing on this one with McLean as the center. But again, I feel like Richie should just replace Casey Cizikas on that fourth line and be paired up with Duclair and Siplikov. And I think that becomes automatically a way better line. Richie adds on an offensive ability that Cizikas does not. And having Siplikov, albeit he wasn't, that goal scorer, playmaker that we hoped he was last year, he has a wicked shot, Siplikov. And having someone like Richie to feed him passes would work wonders. And I'm just kind of curious why we're not moving Cal Richie up to play with those guys, as I just feel like he's a better fit. And yes, Cizikas is the veteran. He's been there a while. But, it's time for new blood. It's time for new faces. And I think Richie has outplayed Cizikas and deserves that chance on that fourth line with Duclair and Siplikov. And in my opinion, that line becomes 10 times better with Richie there instead of Cizikas. But, I'm not the head coach. Clearly, Patrick Waugh and Darsh still see something in Cizikas. But I hope it's not, an error that they make. And I hope that what they see is correct. And then, of course, some injury updates. We had Anders Lee, who was dealing with that upper body injury. He says he hopes to get into another preseason game. He won't be ready to go tomorrow, or as you guys are watching this tonight, he won't be playing. But yeah, I talked about Anders pretty harshly in the video before, or a couple videos ago, saying he did not perform well at all in that preseason game. And hopefully it was the injury nagging him in that game, and he realized it, took the time off, and is focusing up. But he needs to perform better, Anders Lee. He needs to get that rust off and be ready to go, because he's playing on the first line with Barzal and Palmieri. And quite frankly, he can't slow those two guys down. Those two guys are going to need Anders Lee to be at his best ability for a successful first line. And then again, Siplikov, he said he's feeling really good. And like I said, the plan is for Siplikov to play in those final 2 games, preseason games for the New York Islanders. And that's definitely good right now without, having Siplikov. I'm excited to see how he looks in year number 2. And it's about time we get to see him in the preseason. And the Islanders will be playing the Rangers once more in this preseason game. While you guys are watching this, it will be that night when the Islanders are playing the Rangers. We just did beat them. Hopefully we can play a more solid game and not have to rely on Dylan Garand giving up weak goals for us to come back and win. But yeah, it should be good. And I'm excited. And if you guys have any comments that you want me to talk about in a video or just respond to your comments, be sure to leave them below. And as always, let's go Islanders.